Homefront the Revolution is the game we're looking at today. Hello and welcome to the Eyes of O Gaming channel as we explore this reboot from the first game simply called Homefront. Homefront the Revolution released in 2016 with the original Homefront coming out in 2011, so why a reboot? Well, in this video I'm not going to go that deep into that rabbit hole, but basically the original Homefront was published by THQ, and after they went bankrupt the rights to Homefront traded hands a couple of times. In the end, we got a reboot by a fresh group where they attempted to reimagine the Homefront concept. This resulted in a game published by Deep Silver, and the developers, well, again, due to the switching of ownership, it's a little muddy, but basically it was Crytek who began development of the game. The company stopped paying employees' wages and the IP was sold. Development was continued with Deep Silver's Dambuster Studios. From what I could find online, most people from Crytek UK that were involved in Homefront also moved to Dambuster. But aside from all this being kind of interesting, none of this really matters for what we're asking, and is the most important question we ask in this review series: is this still worth it for you? Let's get into it. The setting for this one is an alternate timeline game. In this reality, the United States is actually the underdog getting invaded by North Korea. But not the North Korea that we all know and love in our world. In this version, the communist government had fallen and North Korea is capitalist now. So by harnessing the power of corporations, specifically the Apex Corporation, North Korea has become the most powerful nation on Earth, with Apex being headed up by a North Korean Steve Jobs-like character. Meanwhile, the United States has fallen into massive debt buying tech from Apex, with all this tech being necessary to support its continual wars in the Middle East. So basically the US defaults on its debt to Apex in 2025 and the economy collapses, with North Korea invading with the approval of the international community. Since Apex was the supplier of all military tech, they essentially just shut it down and the invasion goes relatively easily for North Korea. Fast forward now to 2029 and the United States is now under full North Korean occupation. The game takes place in Philadelphia, where the player takes on the role of Ethan Brady, a new recruit to the resistance against the occupation by the KPA, or Korean People's Army. The game takes place in first person and is set up in an open world style. Basically, Philadelphia is divided into districts, and each district will have varying levels of oppression. The core gameplay will follow the player as they work to disrupt this oppression by completing missions, sabotaging infrastructure, and inspiring civilians to support the uprising against the occupiers. Most of the time, focus will be on guerrilla-style warfare and push the player to use hit-and-run tactics. Sabotage or ambushes can lead to being hunted by KPA forces, and the player may need to hide and wait out the retaliation of overwhelming forces. There is some weapon customization and attachments that can be used, as well as allowing players to modify weapons on the fly. Your standard weapons and conversion kits are purchased, and other gear such as explosives or other guerrilla tools can be crafted from scavenged materials. There is kind of a balance in this game between stealth and direct confrontation. In missions, you're often going to find yourselves going into a standard shooter experience. But while you're in the districts in the more free roam style of gameplay, you might find it more practical to rely on stealth. To facilitate this, we've got the option to use stealth takedowns and melee finishers. Movement actually has some parkour elements built into it as well, climbing, sliding, and navigating the urban terrain. There's also going to be a bit of driving. Basically, you can use a motorcycle to get around, but personally I just found it really clunky and annoying. This of course will be totally player dependent, so take that with a grain of salt. The game is broken into the main campaign or story-driven missions as well as side activities. Between missions, you're free to roam around and cause your own chaos or take on some side activities at will. Causing chaos is necessary as the overall objective is to raise the hearts and minds meter of a district to 100%, and basically trigger a full-scale revolt and have the people reclaim the district from the KPA. You also get some visual feedback of this. As you cause chaos in a district, the zones will change to reflect what's happening. In the beginning, you might see a very large KPA presence and things will be generally orderly. Over time, the civilians will become disobedient, you'll see graffiti, or even see people rising up to fight against the occupiers. And eventually, yes, you take the district back. A small mechanic in the game that I personally really liked was that you can recruit temporary followers from random resistance that you meet in the city. Basically, any resistance member that you find can be called on and they'll join you to fight as you move around in the free roam and tackle the side activities. As far as the UI and menus, most things are handled through your cell phone. Your map is accessed there, receive messages, quest journal. It's all basically there as a way of being an immersive menu to access all these general things. So we actually have a few games that I want to compare to for different reasons. The first and my favorite of the comparisons is going to be Freedom Fighters, which came out a long time ago, but actually shares a lot of similarities. We have the general idea of the US being the underdog and invaded by a foreign occupier, and being able to recruit the random resistance fighters that you find along the way to follow you as you go. Honestly, in a lot of ways, due to the narrative, the aesthetic, the general concept, this game felt like kind of a spiritual successor to the Freedom Fighter game. The main difference is, of course, being that Freedom Fighters is a much more linear game, whereas Homefront allows for open world exploration, side activities, and causing general chaos in the free roam gameplay. The next game that I want to bring up is Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. I bring this one up because, again, we see the United States taken over by foreign occupiers and see the civilians, which are divided into both collaborators and resistance fighters. There's also going to be a lot of differences here, but we do have this alternate timeline concept and portrayal of the US as the underdog up against a powerful occupying force. Lastly, I'll just mention Watch Dogs Legion. So we have this authoritarian corporation-backed control of a city, which is then undermined by the player's actions. The dynamic change in the zones and the civilians' reactions to the forces did have some crossover between the two games as well. So as always, if you can think of any other games, please mention them down in the comments and explain why, so gamers can get a sense of what to expect in this game. So I think what stands out the most in this game is the immersive nature of the districts of Philadelphia. As I mentioned, when you first get to a district, it can be populated by people that are totally obedient, but by the end you're going to have a full uprising against the KPA. So personally, I really like when games incorporate your actions and it has a noticeable effect on the world. Not only is it going to have cosmetic and environmental changes, but the civilians will become active participants in the changed look of the districts. You can even find people actually fighting back against the occupiers, which is a really neat detail that's added in. Another thing that's a really personal feature that I like in games is that you can recruit other resistance fighters to help you and follow you. So like I mentioned, this really reminds me a lot of the game Freedom Fighters, and that game holds a lot of nostalgia value for me, so there's that. The on-the-fly weapon customization is also a fairly unique aspect. Instead of needing to go to do modifications somewhere or carrying multiple different types of weapons, you can just change things as you go to fit the situation you find yourself in. The game also tries to focus on guerrilla warfare aspects, so what that means is no, you typically can't just run into a zone and go to war with the KPA. If you do some kind of act of sabotage or something like that, you're probably going to need to get out quick and hide. As far as bugs and performance goes, it all seemed to work for me. I've seen some graphical issues being reported, but I personally didn't really have any issues come up. If I mention anything here, it would just be that bikes behave very strangely. They're clunky and annoying to use, but they do cut down on travel time, so you'll likely end up using them anyway. In my opinion, the graphics are holding up really well. The environments are essentially all going to be destroyed or war-torn city, oppressed city, or city in open rebellion. So considering what they're going for in this game, the fact that there's nothing that's super unique and things are all fairly consistent throughout, it makes sense for the game. Although the NPCs for the most part look pretty good, I did notice some weirdness. They're going to suffer a bit from that uncanny valley style in some moments, but it's not so bad that it's going to take you out of the game, or at least it didn't for me. As for the sound and dialogue, it all fits with the game. Don't expect Shakespeare here, but it gets the job done. Graphics and sound is totally up to the player though, so use the video in this review to decide if it works for you, and I'll play some examples of the dialogue and sound so you can get an idea of what to expect there.
Doc, you don't need to open up. He needs to keep his focus.
Head injuries can be unpredictable. You feeling confused, kid? Disconnected?
Hey, everybody down, stay calm.
What's up?
Come on!
ready on the barrels. Not yet. Wait. Now!
It worked! Get the rest!
Shit, nice!
Target located.
Okay, so we're getting into did I enjoy it or not. This is just my personal opinion on it, so I'm not trying to influence you to say you should enjoy it or not. It's just how I felt about it. They make a ton of games out there for different people with different tastes, so whether or not I liked it, it doesn't mean that you will or won't. This part is just for fun for people that are interested in my personal take on it. And so with that, the question is, did I enjoy Homefront: The Revolution?
Pretty decent setup.
Yeah, I had some fun with this one. It's not the greatest shooter ever by any means, but it's a solid mid-tier experience. The general concept I think is quite interesting. I keep talking about it and I apologize if it's gotten too repetitive, but Freedom Fighters had an effect on me as a kid. I didn't have that many games, so the games that I did have, I generally played over and over. Homefront: The Revolution feels like, in my opinion, it's the successor of the general idea of what they were going for. I also like the focus on guerrilla style of fighting in this game. Like, you're not just running out and going to war because that would be totally absurd. Instead, the game requires you to do acts of rebellion or causing chaos in order to weaken the regime and win the hearts and minds of the civilian population. The light parkour elements do feel right at home in this as well, and it makes sense for what they're going for. I'm not someone who plays games online or does multiplayer, but I did try to do the online multiplayer of this game. It was still working when I attempted it, but it seems like there aren't that many players, so there is a little bit of a wait. This might have changed from the time that I made the review to when you're watching this, but anyway, it all seemed like pretty standard shooter game missions for online games. Something interesting is that you get to make your own resistance fighter with a basic background. So that might make it a little bit more of an interesting aspect for people. Honestly, like I said, I'm not an online or multiplayer gamer, so I don't really have too much to say on it. It seemed fine, not unlike other multiplayer shooter games that I've played. Splitting the game up into the different districts really makes a lot of sense, but it is a fairly common trope for these type of games at this point. I guess it did actually also feel kind of like Far Cry, at least the newer ones, where you have to do things in specific regions to cause rebellion against that regime. The setting here does feel quite a bit different though. It's not like you're going up against a single warlord, you're going against an occupying nation, so it is different. The story, like I mentioned, it's pretty basic, but it gets the job done. I don't really have much that I can complain about or critique in a negative way. Everything that it does is to a solid level. I guess if anything, the fact that it just doesn't do anything in a standout way. This personally doesn't really bother me too much. It means that it falls into that mid-tier, which is, or used to be, essentially the workhorse of the gaming industry. Basically, it's not the game that everyone is going to be talking about, but it's also not that trash game that you regret picking up. If you're looking for something that's a solid shooter, and especially if you like alternate timeline stories that put the United States in an underdog position where they need to fight back, this is probably a really great option, and it can likely be picked up for a really good deal at this point. So regardless, I hope you enjoyed this look at Homefront: The Revolution. If you found the video helpful or entertaining, please give it a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. I upload a bunch of different gaming content, not just reviews, but also walkthroughs and other things as well, and I'd love to have you join the community and help direct the future of the channel. If you've already played this game, please let me know down in the comments if you agree with my own opinions or if you disagree, and why do you disagree. I read essentially every comment I get and the thoughts that you guys have on the games, so it's fun for me as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and until next time, take care.
It started back with the Apex Corporation in the 70s, and the birth of Silicon River in North Korea. Even back then, their tech was way ahead of what was coming out of America. We bought everything they could sell, from phones to tablets to just about anything. And when they started making weapons, well, we couldn't resist. wars in the Middle East had been getting worse and worse, one leading straight to the next, even after that terrible day in Riyadh.